going to review what the Maintenance Management module in Epicor is. This module is used to enter maintenance requests, track maintenance work, and schedule preventive maintenance tasks to be performed on equipment. Preventive maintenance can be performed according to predefined schedules based on elapsed usage time or equipment meter readings. This module can also manage manual requests for a specific maintenance. As we can see, this module is located under Service Management. Then we have the Maintenance Management here. Like other modules, we have the Setup, General Operations, and Report options. Today, I want to start by explaining what setups must be done first in our company. For this, we must go to the Company Configuration screen. In this screen, we will be able to locate in the Modules tab, the Maintenance tab. Here, we will see that we have two fields that are of relevance in the company configuration. The first one is called Template. Here what we're going to do is to define a template for the job that we are going to be creating in each equipment. When we select a template here, we instruct the system that it is going to use the information of that job, including the operations and materials. Every time we generate a job, it will take the information from this template. It is important to mention that if we select information here, this template will be the one that will be used in all equipment. In case we want to define a more specific template for one equipment, it will be in another screen that I will explain later. Another field that is important in this screen is the job prefix. Here, we will be entering specific information, either letters or numbers, with which we will identify that the jobs we generate are maintenance jobs and not production jobs. In this case, we have selected the letters MT for maintenance. And with this, every time a job is generated, the job number or identification will start with these letters. Then, we are going to start looking at the more specific setup of the maintenance module. We go back to the menu pad that we were working with, and we will be able to see that here in the setup we have different options. The first one that I want to explain is the operations. We will see that, unlike the operations for the production jobs, the name of this screen is maintenance operation. This is only an identifier because the operations that are used in the maintenance jobs are not the same that are used in the production jobs. The screen is very simple, and as you can see, it is very similar to the operations screen for the production jobs. To create an operation is easy. We only have to select the New Operation option. And let's start by entering specific information. In this case, the first thing we have to do is to select the ID of our operation. Then, we have to select some description text where we're going to give, as the name says, a more specific description of what we are referring to in this operation. Then we have the text field. This is where we are going to give more detail about what are the specific tasks that have to be done within this operation. As you can see, this option has options. In order to generate new options for this list, what we must do is go to the operation text screen. Here, we can see that depending on the operations text, we can define what the text is. We have more space to enter this information. Returning to the operation, here I'm going to select one as an example. Like the operations of the production jobs, we can define if our operation is a subcontract operation. This means that my company does not have the capacity to do this operation itself, so I have to send it outside my company for this operation to be carried out. In case this option is selected, we will be able to see that the following options are activated here. This is where we can identify the primary supplier and the buyer. This helps us in the purchasing module because it will generate the specific suggestion for that supplier, as well as specific for the buyer. The next part we are going to be reviewing in our system is the equipment. In this screen is where we're going to register all those machines, vehicles, and toolings. All the equipment that I have physically and that I need to register in the system. Like the other screens, to start creating a record, select the New and New Equipment options. Here I'm going to start with specific information about my equipment. What I'm going to do is to register an ID for this equipment. Then I'm going to define what the status is. Here you can see that we have different options, but these options can be specific to the company where you are working. That is, I could go to the equipment status screen and start generating new status options specific to my company. So if I do not see it created, or the option that I need is not one we see here, I can easily create it. For this example, I am going to put that our equipment is in service. The next field that we have to define is to which site my equipment belongs. If I work in a company that is multi-site, meaning I have several sites for the same company, I must define in which site the equipment that I'm going to be registering is located. Then we have to assign a resource group and a resource. This is not necessary, but it does help us a lot with the job scheduling. For example, if I'm planning to create a preventive maintenance job for this equipment, the resources that are assigned to the equipment will not be occupied and won't be free to schedule other jobs. This is why it's important. Later, we can define very specific information about our equipment. Again, it is not necessary, but if I want to have more details about my equipment, I can use these fields, like what is the brand, what is the type. I can also have different ones, and in case I do not see the necessary option or what I need, I can create it in the equipment type screen. I can define what the model number is and what the labor interface option is, as well as since when is my equipment working and if I have a warranty expiration. I have all these fields to be very detailed about the equipment that I am registering. Then we have two very important fields, which are meter unit of measure class and meter unit of measure. These fields help us to specify based on what units of measure we are going to be considering the wear time of my component or my equipment. For example, suppose I have a machine that generates fabric. Then, depending on the meters of fabric that are going to be generated, is how my machine is going to wear down. For this, I must define what the class is. In this case, it would be length. And then define the specific unit of measurement in which I want to measure this. I am going to use meters as an example. Then, if you remember, I explained that you can define a template job for all the maintenance equipment. We do this in the company configuration screen. In case I want to be more specific about which template I'm going to be using for this specific equipment, I can define it here. So, instead of using the template that was for company configuration, in case I had selected it, the system would be using this one here in case your operations and materials have to be more specific depending on the equipment. Another option that we have is, in case this equipment is specific to a project, I can define it here just to be more meticulous. As I said, it is not necessary, but it helps us to have more control. Another information that we can be defining is in case I know that my equipment has to go to a subcontract operation, or define which are the parts that my supplier must have in order to provide the necessary service, as well as which is the service supplier that will be working with my equipment once it goes to maintenance. We have another section called calibration. In case my equipment needs calibration, in this part I can define its inspection plan, as well as what is the specification based on which I am going to be doing the calibration. We can also define what is the last date on which I performed the calibration to have more control and a history of when this was done. Now let me open an option that is already created here to show you the next part. The next important part we have here is maintenance planning. Here we can define which maintenance plans we want to assign to this equipment. We can have as many as necessary, and you can see that in this example that is already created, we have plan number 1. When I create a new one, it will be plan number 2. Why would we need to have different plans? Let's suppose that I need to perform weekly maintenance on my equipment, where I'm going to be checking, I don't know, the oil. But I also need to generate a monthly maintenance, where I'm going to be checking something more specific or something that doesn't require a frequency as short as weekly. For us to be able to make the maintenance plan, what we're going to do is to select the new option, and then we're going to go to new equipment plan. Here we can see that we already had 2 generated, so we are generating number 3. And in this case, I'm going to put that it is a weekly plan. Here, I can specify in detail what needs to be reviewed. I can say that it is recurrent or inactive, depending on what I want to define for the system. And then let's go to the frequency option. Here I'm going to specify how often I need this specific plan to be done. And I have the options of days, weeks, months, and years. Here we're going to put as an example that I want to do it every 7 days. As you can see, when I select this information, what the system does is that it takes 7 days, the 7 days that I put here, based on the day where I am creating it. But let's say that I want my first maintenance to be tomorrow, and from then on, the 7 days start running. This is something that I can also do. And once this plan has been generated, the 7 days will be counted, and the new execution date will be set. I also have the buffer days field. This is where I give it a space in my system so that it calendarizes the job that I'm going to be managing. Here we must be aware that we have 3 fields to assign the templates. If you remember, we have already reviewed the company configuration, that is general for all equipment. Then we have, in the Detail tab, the one that is specific to my equipment. And in this screen is the template job that will be specific to my maintenance plan. That is, if in the weekly plan I only want to check the oil levels, I should use a template job that is specific with operations and materials that will help me to do the tasks of my weekly maintenance, that is the oil revision. So here in this screen, I could select which template job I need to use. Another important part that helps us are the topics. These are also specific to our company or to the needs we have, but here they will help us define the topics on which we are doing our maintenance. Here as an example, we have electric, electrical, maintenance, motor, safety, and others. These are examples that are created in the system, but let's remember that we can have our own. Let's suppose that here it would be maintenance. We can make it very specific. That is to say that it not only has one topic, but that this topic generates more, so that the explanation of what this maintenance plan refers to is very detailed. It is not necessary to create all of them, but we must have assigned at least one to save our maintenance plan. Here I am going to save, and we can see that we already have created in our system the equipment as well as the maintenance plan. In this case, we have 3 that are the ones that we have been using for the examples. Now, here I have already created my preventive maintenance plan. Depending on the options I created here, the system must create these jobs every certain amount of time. For this, there is an option called, let me close this screen. Here, in General Operations, we have the Maintenance Plan Processor option. How does this screen work? This screen is basically a process that runs in the background, where it will be generating the jobs that are necessary based on the information that I have registered for this preventive maintenance. This is a process that can be run automatically. I can set it as a scheduled task, and it can be running, let's say, at midnight. The day after, when I get to work, I will see the specific maintenance jobs that must be running to comply with the preventive maintenance I have. This screen would create a job, but remember, it is a maintenance job and not a production job, so we would go to our next window, which is Maintenance Job Entry. This screen is very similar to the job entry screen that we use for production. The difference we have here is that if I go to the first tab, I can see that instead of having a part number assigned here, what I will have is an equipment ID, which is the basis on which the maintenance or this maintenance job is going to be performed. I have the same job details. I have which materials are assigned, which operations are assigned, and so on. Here, in case I have a subcontract operation, the system works exactly the same as a production job, where suggestions for purchases are generated, etc. Everything is very much the same as a production job. The only difference, as I mentioned, is that it is specific to a maintenance job for a piece of equipment. In the case that we already have the job created based on a template that we use in our equipment, we can still add information here. So let's say I have a preventive maintenance to check the oil, but I just noticed that the machine was also missing a screw, and I want to add it here. Even if I have already created a job using a template, I can add materials and operations here. Another thing I would like to show you is the meter reading. In this screen, what we can do is enter readings every time we are doing our maintenance. And let's open an example to make it more graphic. For the test, we can define what is the new reading that we are seeing based on the specific information of this equipment. So here I would put the new reading. Let's suppose that I have, 100 meters, which are already run, and the system would save this information. And I have my current reading, which is 100 meters, and we can close. I can do the same thing for equipment that instead of meters uses time. And the screen is similar, only this one is in kinetic version. Let's wait for it to load. But the information is the same. The only thing I would be doing is to enter the information on that reading. Now these jobs, just like the production jobs, also record times and costs of the operators that are working on this equipment or on this job. That is, if I have a certain operator that is going to be performing this maintenance or this job, this operator can also go and register their clocking time so that the costs are charged to our job. And it is done in the same way as the production jobs are done. We have the time and expense entry screen. Here, our operator or our employee can go and record specific information, but referring to our maintenance job. So here, all we have to do is select our maintenance job. This can also be done in the MES screen, which is, if you remember, the screen used in production so that the operators have this more specific information for their activities. And here we can see that if I select employee, here in the service tab, I can see that I can also register the maintenance job entry. Here if you look, we can also check the equipment tracker, the maintenance job tracker, etc. Another very interesting part that we can use is the equipment tracker. If I select this option, unlike the equipment entry screen, I have a maintenance log. Here I can be reviewing. Let me select an example to make it more specific. I can be reviewing what are all the jobs that are created for the equipment that I have. This helps me to have a clearer view of what jobs have been created or if I have had previous jobs. It is also possible for us to create jobs directly by system, just as we do in the production jobs. I can go here directly, create a new job, and start specifying the direct information of the equipment I want to be using. I can define if it is specific to a project, and here I have something similar to what we were looking at with the topics for preventive maintenance. Here I can be specific about the issue I see in the system and why I need a specific job for this review. And I can specify the topics of the problem I am having. And then I can start assigning what the operations are, the materials, etc. I also remind you that for the maintenance jobs, all the scheduling functionality is the same that we have for production. It is basically the same framework, only that the maintenance jobs are directed to the equipment, while our production jobs are directed to our production parts. In order to close a job, we use the same job closing screen for the production jobs, so it is similar. If we already know how to close our jobs for production, we would do exactly the same. Select our job, and then define if it is already completed and closed. Now, this explanation was for the preventive maintenance jobs. But what if while I am working on my machine as an operator, I notice that there is a problem with my equipment? What I would do is to submit a request and say, hey, my equipment has a problem and I want someone to check it out. What we're going to do is select the request entry screen. It is important that I show you that this option is also available in the MES. Here we can see that we have the request entry, in case our production team does not have access to the Epicor and has access only to the MES. In this screen, what I'm going to start doing is create a new request. A new number is generated and I'm going to start specifying which equipment I want someone to come and check. Here I start specifying the detailed information about the equipment, which if you notice comes as default from the creation of it. I can also put the date on which I am making this request, and in this section I can start specifying that I have seen a problem. For example, missing oil. I noticed that my machine was missing oil, so I need someone to come and check it because maybe the preventive maintenance was not considering that. It is important that the operator or the person who is creating this request also selects a topic here. It is not necessary, as I mentioned in the other screens, to select everything, but we have the options, and this helps us so that the person who is going to do the maintenance has a little more detail about what needs to be worked on. Once I have this request, what I'm going to do is save it. If you notice, we only have the request, we do not have a job created, and that is a process that we will see later. Now, another thing that we can see here is that in the Issue tab, we select what the problem is. Once the maintenance team has gone to look at the machine, they can come back to this screen and review what the solution is or assign what resolution was given to this specific issue. And this will help us have control or a history of what resolutions have been used for certain issues. In case the same issue occurs again, we can see which solution was used previously. Now, once we have the request, that would be the operator's only task. What the maintenance team would do is, they would go to the request queue screen. In this screen, they will be able to identify any new open requests in the system. This is the one that we have just created. They will be able to open them and see the same information that the operator or the person who raised this request assigned, and depending on the decision that is made, they will be able to approve the job. So based on this information, a new job will be created with the same template that we had assigned for our equipment, which is the one in this part. When selecting the Approve Job button, what is going to be happening is that a job will be created with this information using this template here. Also, if they do not see the need to create this job, they can reject the request or create the job without it going directly to production, but remaining on hold. And then the same steps would be followed, which is what we have already been reviewing in the preventive maintenance. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this information helpful. My name is Ana Muñoz, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for more content. Until the next one.